For thousands of years, Earth was silent, cut off, abandoned, erased from every star map. The galaxy thought it was a quarantine until they learned the truth, and that truth terrified them more than any war ever could. The Discovery archivist Del Mora had served the Galactic Records Division for 43 cycles. She had cataloged the rise and fall of civilizations, documented first contacts between species, and preserved the history of countless worlds. Nothing in those decades had ever made her hands shake like they did now. The archive chamber hummed with soft blue light. Crystalline data cores lined the walls, each one holding millions of years of galactic memory. Delmara sat at her workstation, her silver skin reflecting the glow of her screen. Before her was a file that should not exist. She had found it by accident while organizing old navigation records. The file was buried beneath layers of encryption so ancient that her modern systems barely recognized the code. It took her 6 hours to break through the security protocols. What she found inside changed everything. The file contained only 3 things. A star chart showing a yellow sun in a distant spiral arm. A single planet marked with a red symbol she had never seen before. And a message that made her blood run cold. Absolute quarantine. Sector 7749. Species designation. Human. Isolation protocol enacted by unanimous council vote. Duration. Indefinite. Reason. Classified. Level Omega. Warning. Under no circumstances should contact be attempted. The barrier must never fall. If it does, may the ancestors forgive us. The date on the file was 11,847 galactic standard years ago. Delmora searched every database she could access. She found shipping lanes that curved around a specific region of space, avoiding it completely. She found navigation warnings that offered no explanation, just stern orders to maintain distance. She found energy readings that showed a massive containment field surrounding an entire star system. Powered by technology that predated the modern galactic union by thousands of years, someone had sealed away an entire world. Someone had locked it behind a wall of pure energy and hoped everyone would forget it existed. But why? What could be so dangerous that it required eternal imprisonment? She took her findings to Director Vashkel, her supervisor and mentor. He was a Centaurian, tall and thin with 4 arms and deep violet eyes. He had been with the archives longer than anyone alive. If anyone knew the truth, it would be him. Vashkel took one look at her screen and went completely still. His color drained from violet to pale gray. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he reached forward with one trembling hand and closed the file. Where do you find this? His voice was barely a whisper. In the old navigation archives? Director, what is this? What happened to that world? Nothing happened to it. Vashkel turned away from her. Nothing can happen to it. The barrier ensures that. But what are they? Who are the humans? Vashkel was silent for so long that Telmora thought he would not answer. When he finally spoke, his words came slowly, carefully, as if each one hurt to say. 12,000 years ago, the galaxy was different, younger, more reckless. A new species was discovered on a small blue world. They called themselves humans. They were intelligent, creative, curious. They had just begun to explore their own solar system. They seemed unremarkable in every way. He paused, his 4 hands clasping together. The council of that era made them an offer. Join the galactic community. Share knowledge and technology. Build a future together. The humans accepted with enthusiasm. They were so eager to learn, so hungry for connection with other life forms. That sounds wonderful, Telmora said. What went wrong? Nothing went wrong at first. Humans integrated well. They were clever learners and hard workers. But then they began to study our sciences with an intensity no one expected. They learned in decades what took other species centuries, and then they started to create. Vashkel turned back to face her. His eyes held something she had never seen before. Fear. They developed something we call probability engines. Devices that could manipulate quantum reality itself. They could make improbable things become probable. They could rewrite cause and effect. In their hands, the fundamental laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. Telmura felt her heart beating faster. That should be impossible. It is impossible. For us, but humans think differently than we do. Their minds make connections that ours cannot. They see patterns where we see chaos. And they built machines that could reshape reality based on human will alone. What happened? They used one. Just once. A human scientist wanted to cure a disease that was killing her child. She used a probability engine to make the disease never exist. And it worked. The disease vanished from reality completely. It had never existed. Every being who had ever died from it was simply gone from history. Entire family lines ceased to exist. Civilizations that had developed immunity technologies never developed them because there was nothing to be immune to. Telmura understood then. The full horror of it crashed over her like a wave. They could erase anything, change anything. Yes, and they realized what they had done. The humans were horrified by their own power. They held a global council and made a choice. They asked us to seal them away. They requested isolation. Not as punishment, but as protection. Protection for the galaxy from what they might accidentally do. They imprisoned themselves. They saved us. Vashkel's voice cracked. The barrier was built by human engineers working with our best scientists. It was designed to last forever, powered by probability manipulation itself. A cage built from the very power it was meant to contain. The humans went behind that wall willingly, and they asked us never to let them out. No matter what they said. No matter how much time passed. Telmura looked back at her screen, at the red symbol marking that distant yellow sun. The barrier is failing, she whispered. Vashkel's color drained completely to white. What? Look at the energy readings. The containment field is losing power. Slowly, but steadily. At current rates, it will collapse completely within 5 cycles. They stared at each other. Telmura saw her own terror reflected in her director's eyes. After 12,000 years of isolation, humanity was about to be free. And nobody knew what they had become in all that time. Nobody knew if they still remembered their promise. Nobody knew if the beings behind that barrier were still the careful, responsible humans who had locked themselves away, or if they had become something else entirely. The revelation, the emergency council session was chaos. Representatives from 200 species filled the grand chamber, their voices creating a storm of sound that echoed off the crystalline walls. Telmura stood in the observation gallery, watching as her discovery tore through the careful peace the galaxy had maintained for millennia. On the central display, the barrier around the human system flickered like a dying star. Energy readings scrolled across secondary screens, each one confirming what everyone feared. The containment field had perhaps 3 cycles left before total collapse. Chancellor Mevron called for order, his deep voice cutting through the noise. He was Jorvanian, massive and ancient, with gray skin that showed the scars of 500 years of service. We must decide quickly, he announced. Do we attempt to reinforce the barrier? Do we prepare for contact? Or do we evacuate all worlds within 100 light years of the quarantine zone? We should destroy them. The voice came from Admiral Krishak, a Xanthian military commander. His scales were blood red, and his eyes held no mercy. Before they emerge, before they can use their reality weapons against us, we strike now with everything we have. You would commit genocide? Director Vashkel stood from his seat, his forearms trembling. They imprisoned themselves to protect us. They chose isolation over freedom. And you would repay that sacrifice with extinction? That was 12,000 years ago, Krishak shot back. We have no idea what they have become. They could have spent all that time building weapons, planning revenge for their imprisonment. They asked for that imprisonment, Vashkel insisted. So they claimed. How do we know it was not a trick? A way to make us lower our guard while they prepared. The argument raged for hours. Thelmer listened to every word, her mind racing. Finally, she could stay silent no longer. Send someone to talk to them. Her voice was small in the vast chamber, but Somehow it carried. Heads turned toward her. Before the barrier falls completely, send a delegation. Ask them what they want. Give them a chance to speak. Chancellor Mevron studied her with ancient eyes. You would volunteer for this mission, Archivist? Thelmura had not thought that far ahead. But she found herself nodding. Yes, I would. Then you shall lead our delegation. You have 2 cycles to make contact and return. If you do not return, we will assume the worst. The ship that carried them to the barrier was small and fast. Thelmura traveled with 4 others. Director Vashkel, a linguist named Sora, a scientist called Dr. Wendell, and a security officer, Commander Trix. None of them spoke much during the journey. They were all too aware that they might be flying toward their death's dot as they approached the quarantine zone. The barrier became visible. It stretched across space like a wall of light, beautiful and terrible. Energy crackled across its surface in patterns that hurt to watch. I am detecting a transmission, Sora announced suddenly. It is coming from inside the barrier. Audio only. They are speaking Galactic Standard. Play it, Thelmura ordered. A voice filled the ship. It was human, female, and surprisingly warm. Galactic vessel, this is Earth Central Command. We have been monitoring your approach. We know the barrier is failing. We know you must be frightened. We would like to speak with you before it collapses completely. Will you accept our invitation? Thelmura exchanged glances with her team. This was not what they had expected. We accept, she said into the communicator. Excellent. We are opening a temporary gateway in the barrier. Please proceed through. Welcome to the Sol System. The barrier split open before them, a wound in space that revealed the darkness beyond. Their ship glided through, and the gateway sealed behind them with a sound like thunder. What they saw on the other side stole Thelmura's breath. The human solar system was unrecognizable. The small blue world from the ancient records was still there, more beautiful than any description could capture. But it was no longer alone. Massive ring structures orbited the planet, each one larger than most space stations. The moon gleamed with cities that sparkled like jewels. The red planet nearby had been transformed into a garden world with blue oceans and green continents. But that was not what shocked them most. Around the sun itself, humanity had built something impossible. A sphere of metal and light that enclosed the entire star, capturing every photon of energy it produced. A Dyson sphere, something that existed only in theoretical physics texts. By the ancestors, Dr. Wendell whispered, the energy output alone would power the entire galaxy. What have they been doing for 12,000 years? Commander Trix asked. They have been waiting, Vashkel said quietly. And building, always building. A human ship appeared beside them, sleek and elegant in design. It dwarfed their vessel completely. Please follow us to Earth, the voice said. We have much to discuss. They landed on Earth in a city that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Buildings of living crystal rose toward the sky. Gardens filled every space between structures. Rivers ran through the streets, clean and pure. People walked everywhere, humans of every shade and shape, going about their lives without fear. The woman waited for them at the landing platform. She was tall with dark skin and silver hair. Her eyes were kind but held depths that suggested vast intelligence. Welcome to Earth, she said. My name is Dr. Amara Chen. I am the current speaker for humanity. Thank you for coming. We have hoped for this day for a very long time. Thelmura stepped forward. The barrier is failing. We need to know your intentions. The galaxy needs to know if you still honor the agreement made by your ancestors. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. Walk with me. Let me show you what we have become. She led them through the city, speaking as they walked. When our ancestors made the choice to isolate ourselves, they did so out of fear. Fear of what we might do with the power we had discovered. The probability engines were just the beginning. Our minds work differently than other species. We see possibilities where you see fixed outcomes. We imagine what could be, and somehow we make it real. And that is why you're dangerous, Commander Trix said. Yes, and that is why we locked ourselves away. But isolation gave us time to think, to grow, to understand our own nature. Dr. Chen stopped at a memorial, a great wall covered with names. These are the people who died in the disease that never existed. We remember them, even though no one else in the galaxy does. We carry the weight of what our power can do. She turned to face them. For 12,000 years, we have been studying ourselves, learning to control our abilities, learning wisdom to match our power. We have not been building weapons, as you fear. We have been building understanding. Then what is all this? Dr. Wendell gestured at the transformed solar system. What is the seer on your sun? That is hope, Dr. Chen said, simply. Hope that one day we would be ready to rejoin the galaxy, ready to share what we have learned, ready to help rather than harm. Telmera felt something shift inside her. You still want to come back? We never wanted to leave, but we needed to grow up first. We needed to become worthy of the power we possess. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. The barrier is failing because we are allowing it to fail. We have maintained it all this time with our technology. But we believe we are finally ready. Ready to return. Ready to take our place in the galaxy again. How can we trust you? Vashkal asked. How can we know you will not reshape reality on a whim? You cannot know. Not with certainty. Trust is always a leap of faith. Dr. Chen met his eyes. But we can show you what we have built. We can teach you what we have learned. And we can prove through our actions that we remember the lesson our ancestors learned so painfully. Power without wisdom is destruction. Knowledge without responsibility is catastrophe. We will not make that mistake again. She led them to a facility at the edge of the city. Inside, they saw something that made their understanding of reality bend. Probability engines. Hundreds of them, but they were not weapons. They were tools, carefully controlled and monitored. Humans worked among them with practiced precision, using reality manipulation for healing, for creation, for solving problems that other species considered impossible. We have learned to live with our gift, Dr. Chen explained, to use it carefully, sparingly, and always with consideration for the consequences. We want to teach this to the galaxy, to share our methods of control, to help other species reach their own potential without the dangers we faced. Telmera watched a human healer use a small probability engine to cure a patient, making disease probability approach zero without erasing it from history. The control required was extraordinary. The precision was beyond anything she had imagined possible. When the barrier falls, she asked quietly, what will you do? Dr. Chen smiled. We will ask permission to come home. And we will wait for your answer, however long it takes. We have learned patience. We can wait a little longer. The choice, the return journey to the Galactic Council, felt different. Telmera sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars stream past. Her mind replaying everything she had witnessed on Earth. Beside her, Director Vashkal was silent, his four hands folded in contemplation. Dr. Wendell kept reviewing the data they had collected, muttering in disbelief. Sora looked troubled, and Trix wore an expression that Telmera could not quite read. They are not what I expected, Trix finally said, breaking the silence. What did you expect? Telmera asked. Monsters, weapons, beings drunk on their own power. He shook his head slowly. Instead, I found philosophers, scientists, people who seemed genuinely humble about abilities that could reshape existence itself. It could still be deception, Dr. Wendell said, though her voice lacked conviction, an elaborate performance to lower our defenses. For what purpose? Vashkal countered. If they wanted to attack us, they have had 12,000 years to prepare. They have technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. They have power sources that could fuel entire civilizations. If conquest was their goal, they would not need our permission to leave their system. They would simply leave? Telmera nodded slowly. Dr. Chen said something that stayed with me. She said trust is always a leap of faith. Maybe that is what the galaxy needs to learn. To have faith again. Faith is dangerous when the stakes are this high, Trix argued. We are talking about beings who can rewrite reality. One mistake, one moment of carelessness, and everything we know could cease to exist. That is true, Delmora acknowledged. But living in fear forever is also a kind of death. The humans chose to face their fear. They locked themselves away to protect us. Now we must choose whether to let them back in. They arrived at the council chambers with one cycle remaining before the barrier's predicted collapse. The delegation's report was scheduled immediately. Every seat in the vast chamber was filled. Representatives from across the galaxy waited to hear what they had discovered behind the ancient wall. Chancellor Mevron called the session to order. Archivist Delmora, you have returned from the human quarantine zone. The galaxy awaits your report. What did you find? Delmora stood, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon her. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She told them everything. The transformed solar system, the Dyson sphere, the beautiful cities, and the careful control of impossible power. She described Dr. Chen's words, the memorial to those erased from existence, and the visible regret the humans carried for their ancient mistake. They have not been preparing for war, she concluded. They have been preparing for peace. For 12,000 years, they've worked to become worthy of their own abilities, and now they ask only for permission to rejoin the community they left behind. The chamber erupted into debate. Some representatives called for immediate acceptance. Others demanded continued isolation. Admiral Krishak stood and argued passionately for a preemptive strike while the barrier still held. This is our only chance, he insisted. Once that barrier falls, we will be at their mercy. Better to act now, while we still have the advantage of surprise. What advantage? Bashkul shot back. They monitor our communications. They track our ships. They know every move we make. If they wanted to harm us, our attack would accomplish nothing except to prove we have learned nothing from history. The argument raged for hours. Delmora watched it all, feeling helpless. Everything she had said seemed to change nothing. The galaxy was paralyzed by fear, unable to make a choice. Then something happened that changed everything. An emergency signal blazed across every screen in the chamber. A priority alert from the Outer Rim territories. On the main display, images appeared of a star system in chaos. Planets were being torn apart by gravitational anomalies. Space itself seemed to be collapsing inward, creating a void that consumed everything it touched. What is happening? Chancellor Mevron demanded. Unknown phenomenon, Chancellor, a technician reported. 3 inhabited worlds are in immediate danger. 7 billion lives at risk? Our ships cannot get close enough to evacuate. The gravitational distortions destroy anything that enters the affected zone. How long until the planets are destroyed? 6 hours. Maybe less. Silence fell over the chamber. 7 billion lives? And no way to save them. A new transmission came through. Audio only. Dr. Chen's voice filled the council chamber. Galactic Council? This is Earth. We are monitoring the crisis in the Outer Rim. We believe we can help. Our probability engines can stabilize the gravitational collapse and save those worlds. But we need your permission to act. We will not use our technology without the galaxy's consent. The choice is yours. All eyes turned to Chancellor Mevron. The ancient Dorvanian sat very still, the weight of billions of lives pressing down upon him. If we refuse, Admiral Krishak said quietly, 7 billion people die, but we maintain the quarantine. If we accept, we give humans access to the galaxy again. There will be no going back. If we refuse, Telmura said, her voice shaking with emotion, we become the monsters we feared they were. We let innocent people die because we are too afraid to accept help. Chancellor Mevron closed his eyes. For a long moment, he did not move. Then he opened his eyes and spoke. Dr. Chen, you have the Council's permission. Save those worlds. Understood, Chancellor. We are dispatching assistance now. On the screens, they watched it happen. Human ships appeared at the edge of the collapsing system, sleek vessels that moved with impossible grace. The probability engines activated, and reality itself seemed to pause. The gravitational anomalies slowed, stopped, and then reversed. Space stabilized. The planets ceased their death spiral and settled back into stable orbits. 7 billion lives saved in less than an hour. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Everyone had just witnessed what humanity could do. The precision, the control, the power used not for destruction but for salvation. The barrier will fall in approximately 4 hours, Dr. Chun's voice said calmly. We will remain in our system until the council makes a formal decision about our status. Take whatever time you need. We have waited 12,000 years. We can wait a little longer. The transmission ended. Chancellor Mever looked around the chamber at the hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy. I call for a vote, he said. All in favor of accepting humanity back into the galactic community. Hands rose. Tentacles lifted. Wings spread in assent. Not everyone voted yes. Admiral Krishak and his supporters abstained. But the majority was clear. The motion passes, Reverend announced. When the barrier falls, humanity will be welcomed back. Let us hope we are making the right choice. Talmora felt tears running down her silver skin. Beside her, Vashko placed one of his 4 hands on her shoulder. You did well, he said quietly. You gave them a chance. 4 hours later, the barrier collapsed. The ancient wall of energy flickered one final time and vanished, releasing humanity back into the galaxy after 12 millennia of isolation. The first human ships to emerge did not come with weapons. They came with gifts, medical supplies, technology, knowledge, teachers ready to help other species. Understand the principles of careful power use and responsible creation. Dr. Chen herself arrived at the council station aboard a small diplomatic vessel. She met with Chancellor Meveron in his private chambers. Talmora was there too, invited as a witness to this historic moment. Thank you for trusting us, Dr. Chun said simply. We will not betray that trust. You already proved yourselves, Meveron replied, by saving those worlds, by waiting for permission instead of simply taking your freedom. Our ancestors made a promise. We honor that promise. Dr. Chun smiled. But we also learned something during our isolation. Power is not the most important thing. Connection is. Community is. We miss being part of something larger than ourselves. We miss having friends among the stars. You will have to prove yourselves again and again, Mevron warned. There are many who still fear you, who will watch your every action for signs of danger. We understand. Trust is earned slowly. We are prepared for that journey. Telmar spoke up then. What will you do now? With all your knowledge and power? Dr. Chun turned to her, and in her eyes, Telmar saw genuine warmth. We will teach. We will learn. We will help where we can and step back where we should. We will be partners, not masters. That is the wisdom our isolation brought us. Power without partnership is loneliness. And we have been lonely long enough. She extended her hand, a human gesture of greeting. Thelmer took it, feeling the warmth of human skin against her own silver palm. Welcome home, Thelmer said. Thank you, Dr. Chun replied. It is good to be home. In the days and weeks that followed, humanity began to integrate back into galactic society. It was not always easy. Old fears lingered. Suspicions remained. But slowly, carefully, connections were rebuilt. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers, sharing knowledge that had been developed during the long isolation. Human engineers helped repair aging infrastructure across dozens of worlds. Human teachers instructed others in the careful discipline required to wield power responsibly, and always. The humans remembered. They kept the memorial to those who had been erased. They told the story of their mistake to anyone who would listen. They never let themselves forget what had brought them to isolation in the first place. Telmora returned to her work in the archives, but now she had a new purpose. She was writing the complete history of humanity's isolation and return. It would be the most important document she ever created. One evening, As she worked late in her office, she received a message from Earth. It was from Dr. Chen. Thank you, Archivist, for giving us a chance. For seeing past the fear to the hope beneath. History will remember what you did. But more importantly, 7 billion people in the Outer Rim will live because you spoke up when it mattered most. That is the greatest monument anyone can ask for. Telmera saved the message. Then she returned to her writing, documenting this new chapter in galactic history. A chapter about fear and faith, about isolation and return, about the wisdom that comes from acknowledging one's own capacity for harm. Humanity was home. And the galaxy, though still cautious, was learning to trust again. Outside her window, a human ship passed by, its elegant form reflecting the starlight. Somewhere aboard that vessel, humans were probably working on something new, imagining possibilities that others could not see. Dreaming of what might be done, and this time the galaxy would dream with them. The end.